downtown Vancouver, where turn game night into a game weekend. Book your stay at the Wall. Enjoy an exclusive Sekeres and Price rate. Call 604-331-1000. Mention the Sekeres and Price rate. Some blackout dates apply based on availability. I'm not sure they're going to have a lot of availability this week. Just saying.
No.
Grey Cup.
Probably pretty booked.
Sekeres with Blake Price, four-time Juno Award winner Mike Rogerson. Hitting switches, conducting things. Big show planned for you after a very, very busy weekend for the Vancouver Canucks. We'll start with the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Was trading Daniel Sprong and promoting Jonathan Lekkerimaki the right call? Yes or no? You can vote at the Sekeres and Price X and YouTube channels. I got to say, partner, I did a little bit of head scratching this weekend on this one with the Canucks. What says you?
I just don't know why they wouldn't have tried a little longer with Daniel Sprong. I get the Lekkerimiki's hot right now, but
in the Besser spot, that would seemingly be the best place to play him, right? As an offensively inclined player to make up for Brock Besser. He's even a right shot there.
Unless Seattle,
who
knows? Seattle might be saying to them, "Listen, we need him now. If not, we gotta go with somebody else. If you're not going to give this guy to us now." So they might have felt a little bit.
But you got nothing. You got nothing. You got future. What are future considerations? Oftentimes they're nothing.
Right. And
so I
they wanted the contract clearly off the books for some, and that's the early response that we're seeing from people. Like, no, they've got something cooking. This is the first step to something else. Maybe
that's what I wonder that myself when they moved Sprong on Friday. I wonder, okay, do they have something big coming? And then they promoted Lekkerimaki, and I was like, And so I voted no, and for several reasons. Look, if Sprong had been a problem in a room, and this is a guy who has bounced around his entire hockey career. We're not just talking about his National Hockey League career. We're talking about a player who seemingly was on a different team, going back to youth hockey, minor hockey. He was on a different team just about every year. The only real stability he ever had was playing Quebec Major Junior Hockey, where he played for one team. But, Pittsburgh, to Anaheim, to Washington, to Seattle, to Detroit, to Vancouver, now back to Seattle. So if he was being a problem in the room, or a problem for you in terms of him not buying in, and that's also a room problem, right? If he's one of the holdouts and refuses to buy in, then I can understand this. Otherwise, I'm like you, Blake. I would have given him a run in the Besser spot because it's a comparable profile there. And I would have had Lekkerimaki marinate a little longer. I got to say, and for the most part, I give this management group the benefit of the doubt because they've done good work. But boy, does this look hasty. Does this look like a Jim Benning move to some degree? Recalling a first-round pick who's a lithe guy. 5'11", 172 pounds after 13 games of North American experience where, you see the 6 goals and you think, terrific. Also a -8 this year. I have a hard time putting any expectation on Jonathan Lekkerimaki right now because of just how new he is to the North American game and just how hasty this looks on the surface. We'll hear from Coach Tocchet here in a moment, but I would be surprised if Lekkerimaki impacts the team here in this column.
That's my thought, too. And it's funny, I did have a sort of a Jim Benning flashback myself on this. It seems impatient. This has been a management group that has been very patient because they've decided to use pro scouting instead to their advantage and bring in actual NHL players rather than have to lean on young players early on. So I'm a little surprised. One of our Swedish hockey insiders, Mike Zanier, over there covering the SHL, says, hey, he played in the SHL last year, played just fine. It's a better league than the AHL. See what he could do at the NHL level for now. And it is a free look because you can demote him, you can put him through. There's no waivers here. You're just up and down. So it's a free look with your AHL team a drive away. I get it. But
there's not a lot lost here. Yeah, there's not a lot lost here. The difference between this and, say, the Virtanen and McCann moves is that, they were hell-bent on making Virtanen and McCann NHL players before either were ready to be NHL players, and both of them developed attitude problems. I trust that will not be the case.
Except there is something lost in Daniel Sprong. Like, if you made the Daniel Sprong move to help facilitate and help create room and opportunity, like, you did lose some depth there.
Yeah. No, okay. Fair enough. I think this dressing room is too insulated with leaders to allow what happened with Virtanen and McCann to happen, not to mention with a head coach in Rick Tocchet that's a little bit different than, a happy to be there Willie Desjardins getting his first NHL coaching gig into his 50s.
Let me stem the tide here of those that are in the chat going to be yelling, Sprong doesn't know how to play defense. He is very clear. Tocchet didn't like him. You gave him 8-9 games, whatever it was. Vinny Desharnais is going to be getting a lot more than that, and he doesn't seem to get the system very well either. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be like, oh, no, patience for Desharnais. It's early. But, oh, no, we know Sprong. He's not playing
I think you can't. No, I think you can't have it both ways just because there's a checkered history with Sprong that there isn't with Desharnais.
Is there, though, a documented checkered history?
Well,
there's a lot of rumor and innuendo. Not a lot of concrete. It is not
documented because hockey media, for the most part, is pretty cowardly and doesn't get into that stuff. But there's a lot of red flags on this guy and have been for years. Again, look at how many teams he played on, Blake.
But he just got traded back. I hear you, but they just got traded. He just got traded back to a team that knows him well.
Yeah, okay, and a team where he had success, and a team that needs to do something. Quickly because the playoffs are running away, and a team that got 21 goals from him 2 years ago. Well, a team that had his Mona Lisa, like 21 goals, 25 assists 2 years ago. A team that needs to do something quickly lest the season go away on them, and a team that, because they were an expansion team, were not able to accumulate offensive talent, are still in the business of doing that. And hoping that the young talent that they've been able to accumulate
the Canucks need offensive talent right now.
But they're not offensive, dynamos just yet.
But with no Boeser, they need an offensive talent right now too.
That's what surprised me. Yeah, that's what surprised me is you seemingly had, the open spot, the availability, the opportunity for which you signed Daniel Sprong. If we have an injury in the top six, he's a guy who can plug there because he can play with skill and has great skill. And yet they chose not to, which, does make me wonder whether there was something about Sprong beyond just, there was a bad drop pass in the third period the other night, but, needless to say, it'd be more than just a drop pass. It would have to be a pattern of behavior, actions that the coaching staff and the organization no longer wanted to endure. Last chance to take advantage on specials of 2024 models at Surrey Mitsubishi. When you trade in any vehicle for a new 2024, Surrey Mitsubishi will give you $3,000 above market value for your trade. Take advantage of rates as low as 1.9%. You can get the extended warranty on the 2024 PHEVs at no charge, plus $1,000 credit towards winter tires. Only while inventory lasts, only at Surrey Mitsubishi. Surrey Mitsubishi, 13820 104th Avenue in Surrey, or online at surreymitsubishi.ca. Drove mine up your part of the world, North Shore, this past weekend, so enjoyed that. Okay, let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. A 7-3 loss to the Edmonton Oilers on Saturday. A 4-goal barrage from the visitors in the third makes a close game a blowout, but only after the Canucks had to come scratching back from down 3-0. Jeff Paterson with a goal and an assist, a multi-point game. Told you he was ready to start scoring here. But Coach wasn't all that impressed, or at least Coach wasn't going to dwell on this performance from Paterson. Here's Tocchet.
For Paterson with his individual game, are you seeing him coming along here, trending in the right direction?
It's good to build on. Good for him.
Like it's comical. Like,
yeah, I'm continuing to believe that Tocchet and Paterson might just not be the best fit.
That's all you've got to say about your star player finally showing up on the score sheet.
Right, because Rick's a smart guy, and he understands that this was his opportunity to heap some praise and to show some sugar and love towards a guy who has been down in the dumps.
He clearly doesn't want to show this as the finish line, though. That's right. That's all, right? He doesn't want. Doesn't want anybody. That's
fine, but this was an opportunity for him to, and we know Elias hears everything. And so this was an opportunity to message to your player through the media and build them up a little bit. There have been occasions in the past when you've torn him down a little. And, not to mention, I do think there's a trust issue there, Blake, after what he said about the knee injury last year. Oh, it's tendonitis, dismissively again. So I was a little surprised by that. I thought for sure you would hear Tocchet it came from Brendan Batchelor, right? It comes from your play-by-play guy, right? Not usually the fastballs. So I thought that was an opportunity to take that question and run with it and heap some praise on Petey. And alas, no. And maybe he was just pissed off at the third period. Maybe he was just pissed off at the game in general. Kevin Lankinen loses in regulation for the first time as a Vancouver Canuck, fails to gain a point for the team. He gives up 7 on 27 shots. He is replaced by Artur Shilovs in this game. And the Canucks have surrendered the first goal in 7 consecutive games, Blake. And, last year, so much of their success was scoring that first goal and then being good front runners. And that's become an issue here as well.
And I have to think that the parallel problem with that is now JT Miller here. Who does not seem to be his normal self. And so often those early goals came from something JT Miller was doing, or at least Paterson to some degree too. But now the 2 top forwards are middling at best. Like, as great as it is to see Elias Pettersson going a little bit here, he's just going a little bit. He's not going like gangbusters here. He's not challenging for player of the week here. They're still below pace. And with those 2 guys, with your 2 top centermen middling at best, that's not likely to.
And with Besser out of the lineup too, right? Yeah. So it's 2 points in his last 6 games or 5 games for JT Miller, a goal against the Kings, but an empty netter,
right? An
assist against the Ducks, shutout against Jersey, San Jose, and Edmonton. He was a -3 against the Oilers as well. Played just the 17 minutes. In fact, Blake, he has crested 20 minutes only once since the game at Florida. And, we know for a while there he wasn't taking faceoffs. I wonder if there's something that JT Miller is playing through. Of course, missed all that time in preseason as well. So I do wonder whether there's more of the story there with JT Miller. But they need some goals. We're going to get into some of the stats with Jay Fresh a little bit later. But Besser, it's an upper body injury. They're not saying it, but concussion protocol would mandate that he is kept out a minimum of 5 days. So, as we discussed last week, if he is in the concussion protocol, and we don't know that yet, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, that takes us to, meaning he'll likely miss the game against the Flames tomorrow at Rogers Arena. Hope it's not, but we'll see what's going on there. As for, just one more thing on Sprong. Why would you do the Kraken a favor? Like, I saw Dollywall say, the agent didn't ask for a trade, but you have to think that the agent is in conversation here, right?
Yeah.
Why would you do your geographic rival and division team a favor? Why wouldn't you just waive them?
You would do that when you really, honestly, to me, the only reason you do that,
are you so afraid of Pat Brisson and JP Barry you can't waive one of their guys?
No. To me, this is, we think so little of this player, we don't care that you have him. To me, that...
Let him go poison your room?
Yeah, or just that this player is only benefiting the opposition team when he's out there. So by all means, you can have him.
The home record now is 1-2-3, so they have done their best work on the road, the Vancouver Canucks. I saw a jersey hit the ice on Saturday, and, I mean, come on, 7-3-3. I think that may be a function of the fact that Canucks games are so expensive now, and you've got fans who can only afford to go so often, and if that happens to be one of the games you go to, that you're upset enough to throw a jersey. But, yeah, a little much. As far as I was concerned, the team's 7-3-3. They practiced.
That's an Oiler jersey. That's an Oiler fan. There's a lot of Oiler fans there. That's an Oiler fan who happened to have one lying around and thought they'd poison the well.
Sunday, they practiced. Suter was moved to the line with Miller and Lekkerimaki. They're going to try Lekkerimaki in the Besser spot. Paterson with DeBrus, back with DeBrusque and Garland. Bluger still with Sherwood and Heinen, and then Ratu with Joshua, who practiced in the forward ranks, and Höglander. Patrick Alvin met the media on Saturday and said Alvin was hopeful that Joshua could play on this homestand.
That's a decent line. Joshua, Ratu, and Höglander. I'm mildly intrigued by what that line could do, actually.
As a fourth line, that looks amazing. So, let's tackle the Lekkerimaki recall here. First of all, Alvin said he tweaked something and wasn't going to play in the game Saturday for the Abbotsford Canucks, and sure enough, he didn't. Now, I don't know if that tweak is something like, if the tweak was, well, we're calling him up, so he's not going to play Saturday.
Yeah, probably.
Or if there actually is a physical injury there. Let's hear from Coach Tocchet on the opportunity for Jonathan Lekkerimaki.
Yeah, try to enjoy the moment and have fun, so very excited.
How do you feel your season's been going so far in Abbotsford?
I think pretty good. Just play my game and get better every day.
That was actually Jonathan Lekkerimaki. He is a man of few words, as we have learned since he was drafted by the Vancouver Canucks a couple of years ago. He was the 15th pick in the 2022 NHL entry draft, known as one of the better pure goal scorers and shooters in that draft, if not the best. People thought amongst that class of players that this guy had some of the highest upside as a goal scorer, some of the best shooting ability of that class.
Perfectionist by all accounts too. He's a guy that is driven and a perfectionist and is focused on his career. So
which is great because he had a poor season after he was drafted, and he fought like hell through to the end of that season, including becoming a point per game player in the Swedish Division 1, so second tier of Swedish pro hockey playoffs. He wound up reconciling and basically rehabilitating prospect status with 15 points in 15 playoff games that year. And then last year he went out and lit up the best Swedish league with 19 goals in 46 games. Let's hear from Coach Tocchet on the opportunity at hand for this young prospect.
This is something we've been tracking, because, it's the old story. Do you let him marinate, blah, blah, blah. But I think there's certain times where you want a guy to come up, get a taste, and see where he's at. Whether he stays on, I don't know. I mean, he'll decide that. But I really want to make sure we cocoon him with a good environment around, that he's got a lot of help.
Yeah, that's all smart messaging from Tocchet.
It leads you to believe that he's not up for long. Like, unless he shoots the lights out. But I think this is likely to be a Brock's out for a couple of games, maybe. Why don't you take his spot while he's gone? I think that's what this spot is here for Lekkerimaki.
You've played well down there. Here's a little sugar. And we don't anticipate that you'll stay here long term unless
you shoot the lights out.
Yeah, exactly. You become indispensable, too good to ignore sort of thing. So, okay. Going to be fun tomorrow against the Calgary Flames.
Something additional to watch, yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, Blake, when is the last time they called up a first-round draft pick?
Called up mid-season?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I guess after they demoted Jake, Colson.
Yes, Podkolzin, I guess. Yeah, that's
Podkolzin. But,
yeah.
As we talked about with Hughes, with Paterson, with Besser, like they were straight to the NHL guys, right? Like they didn't marinate in the AHL. They went straight to the National Hockey League. So it's been few and far between the first-round picks that have been called up to the Vancouver Canucks. Thatcher Demco, he practiced with his teammates on Sunday. Alvin had said there's no timeline here, but Coach Tocchet was really pleased with Sunday's practice. Here he is on a step forward for Thatcher Demco.
I would say yes. This is a progressive day. Yes, for him to be in. I mean, and to see him in there and line rushes and be in there with the action, I think that's a huge step for this team and himself.
That's it. It's the what he did as much as when he did it. He looked like a normal goalie at practice yesterday, and it was a progression. Darren Dreger reported to us on a week ago that he was going to practice with teammates at some point this week. He took shots from teammates, what was a Thursday or Friday, and then he's full on practicing on Sunday with his teammates. In fact, the reporting that I saw from the practice was that he actually ended up being in between the pipes more than Young and Lankinen were.
Yeah, and for everybody who's wondering why Ty Young is up here having touched the ECHL this year, you can send your goaltender down to accrue cap space, as the Canucks have done with Arturs She Loves, but you have to have two healthy goaltenders on the roster at all times. So Young was called up to check that box. It may well be that Thatcher Demco is healthy enough and on the comeback trail that Arturs She Loves doesn't get recalled. But for now, I anticipate that She Loves will be recalled to be the backup goaltender against the Flames. Or maybe, who knows, maybe gets tossed in after Saturday. And that Ty Young will be dispatched. The Canucks continue to try and accrue as much cap space as they can. And here's the odd thing, these weekly JFresh updates on a bunch of league-wide stats. Canucks are fourth in expected goal percentage right now, 56%. They're sixth in goals scored above expected. Like they're 31st in goals saved above expected, minus 8.1. Now, a lot of that has to do with She Loves getting ventilated a couple of times. A lot of that has to do with the third period Saturday night. Small sample size, but just to see them that far down the ranking in a goaltender category was a little bit jarring.
The goaltending stats are going to be very weird because there's been 3 flare-ups. 2 She Loves starts and 1 Lankinen start that really pollute the water, which, if you look at the Lankinen stats, at least in isolation, they're spectacular. And we've talked about the fact that going into that Edmonton game, Lankinen was at the top of the league. So, goaltending stats are a weird one for the Canucks right now because of the 3 bad starts.
Yep. Okay. Let's get to today's menu. It's brought to you by Greta. Greta, a fantastic spot to catch all the games, home and away. We'll be there for Canucks Army viewing parties throughout the season. Your minutes from the arena, steps from the stadium. Check out the great street food menu. The smash burger is amazing. The Big Mac poutine, decadent. The arcade, so very popular. An unbelievable air hockey table. If you haven't seen it before, you want to check that out in the back corner. Weekly drink specials. Greta, the place to be. 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. I think there'll be a lot of people downtown this week enjoying beverages with the Grey Cup Festival upon us. J-Pat's going to join us. Shorter show today on the Remembrance Day holiday, so J-Pat's going to join us. And we'll talk about the end of the season for the Vancouver Whitecaps as well on today's program. Fell just short against LAFC. Time now for our Bet365 Bets of the Day. This segment brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price. Delighted to have them aboard. So I was 0-2 on the Canadian Football League this past weekend. So I'm going to go to the NFL now. I've taken my lumps.
Okay.
I was big on the LA Rams heading into this season, and I still believe. I think they've righted the ship, and mostly I think it's about good health with this team. Defense has been terrific. Offense is still capable when Cup and Nakua are playing. So I'm going to take them to beat Miami on Monday Night Football and lay 2.5 points with Sean McVay. Lay with McVay, 2.5 points. Give me the Rams.
Wow, I thought I could find something good on Cale Makar's shots on goal here today. Did you see his goal on the weekend? Oh, my God, what a ripper. The guy, he's shot happy right now. But 4 shots on goal for Cale Makar is only plus 135. And that's a lot of shots on goal. Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to go out and say and take the game instead because I think the Avalanche are starting to find their stride a little bit. So I'll take the Avs comfortably over the Preds. That's minus 1.5 for a plus 160 payout.
Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION when opening that account. Jeff Paterson coming up next.
I'll be honest, I don't get to many games anymore, whether it be at the arena or the stadium. Ticket availability cost, it's a bit of an issue these days. So I prefer to go where there's atmosphere and I know I can get in. Greta Bar YVR. Soak up all the atmosphere with your fellow fans and enjoy a great night with a great street food menu. I prefer the poutine. Weekly drink specials as well at Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova. And we'll be having our viewing parties there all season long as well. Your pregame, your postgame, it's at Greta Bar YVR, 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin.
Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center.
Did this weekend not scream comfort menu at White Spot? Another wind warning, more rain, it's cold. It screams mini Yorkies, braised beef burgers, pot roast, chicken pot pie, prawn and bacon carbonara, rich foods that fill the gut and make you scream, we just had dinner at White Spot. Go visit your local White Spot today.
I think every weekend from here out might be a comfort food weekend. Yeah. Check back in March, maybe February if we're lucky.
For the light salads.
Yeah, exactly. Here's Jeff Paterson. Yeah, they have those too. Here's Jeff
if you
Paterson,
need one, but
the host of Ring Quiet. If you're mixing one in, and of course our Canucks reporter. Jeff, how are you?
Good. I think I heard Kevin Lankinen in a little ball there in the third period screaming, mini Yorkie, mini Yorkie.
Comfort. Give me comfort. Yes.
Give me a blanket and a mini Yorkie.
Yeah. Well, second big divisional showdown of the year, Jeff, after the win in Los Angeles, and they failed this test to the Oilers. Your takeaways?
Yeah, I didn't love the start. Didn't think they did enough to test Stuart Skinner, and we all know it's Stuart Skinner, and there are goals to be had there generally. Didn't have the puck a lot in the first period, gave up the early goal, and then you're chasing the game, and that's been part of the problem here. Not with the results, but the process is that's 7 straight games now the Canucks have fallen behind. And so they've got to change that course and get back on top of teams and dictating the way the games are played. But then, as we've seen throughout this season, a little mini stirring comeback there in the second period to make it interesting. And at 3-2 with half the game to go, you thought, okay, it's taken them a while, but they found their legs and look out now. But that's as good as it got for the Canucks. Hard to explain the third period, quite honestly. Just stopped playing essentially and kind of looked for one of the first times this season like they were feeling a little sorry for themselves in the third period as the game slipped away. So we joke about Lankinen. He's been all world for the Canucks. He's allowed to have an off night. Didn't get a lot of help in front of him. Didn't love a few of the goals that got right through him. But they come home from California riding high, feeling good about themselves. We're heaping praise on them for the way that they played and the way that they beat the Los Angeles Kings. And kind of one step forward, one step back. The record still looks pretty good where it is through 13 games, but exposed in the back end as they have been by a handful of other teams. And again, this home ice record, guys, is maybe the most bizarre part of it all.
1, 2, 3. They're the home record.
Right.
The defensive play was poor, and maybe that's why he wanted 7 defensemen available, but I think you could have flipped it around and said, hey, this is effectively the 4th game on the road because you had to change cities for it. Why are you cutting yourself off with 11 forwards in that game, do you think?
Yeah, he explained it post game and then got into it a little bit further after practice on Sunday and basically owned it. And it's funny because just about everything Rick Tocchet touched last year with his hockey club worked out for him. He was the coach of the year. We all know the story. Had the Midas touch. I would say he outthought himself when he went to Artur Silovs instead of Kevin Lankinen for the home game against New Jersey when the team was on a roll. And it wasn't all on Silovs, but he clearly wasn't good enough that night. And then here going 11-7. Now, he mentioned that there was a defenseman that they weren't sure about. And so there was some degree of insulation there. But then he also said he wanted Noah Juleson for penalty killing responsibilities, knowing what the Oilers can do on the power play. So that was the line of thought. But yesterday, he was asked, would you go back down that road? And he said, nah, I'm not an 11-7 guy. I kind of got talked into it, and it didn't work. So he admitted that some of it was on him as well. And we saw it, guys. Like, there were stretches in that game on Saturday. At one point, you had the two lefties, Quinn Hughes and Eric Brandstrom, out on the ice together, and that was followed in short order by Tyler Myers and Vincent Desharnais, the two right-handed giants. You get that when you've got 7 defensemen. It just gets clunky in a hurry. It's hard to get a rhythm and a routine up front with 11 forwards. And so, yeah, as bad as the Canucks were defensively, I do think the coach has to own his share of it as well.
What defenseman are they not sure about?
Yeah, he wouldn't cop. We may never know. But then the captain gets a maintenance day on Sunday, so it was explained as fatigue, and they're trying to manage his minutes. And I think that's all wise. But who knows? There was no indication that anybody was really laboring or struggling through the hockey game, but every guy's playing with something throughout the year. So, I don't know who was that D-man in question.
Well, we're on the topic, just talked about JT Miller, who's gone pretty quiet here over the last 5 games. Do you think there's anything lingering there with him, Jeff?
He certainly doesn't look like the same loud, explosive player that we've come to know and love in this market. We all know the story in the preseason, but guys, the preseason was late September. It's now approaching mid-November. Like, I see this, and I wrote a column at Canucks Army about it's just awfully quiet around him. 1 empty net goal in the last 6 games, and 1 empty net goal and a second power play assist. His lone offensive contributions in the last 5 games. So, with so much focus on Quinn and his heroics and so much focus on Elias Pettersson at the other end of the spectrum and his struggles, you've kind of had JT Miller flying under the radar. And when I think of JT Miller, I think opening night, right? The thunderous hit on Kevin Rooney, the fight that came because of it. And then when they're down a goal in the final minute and they need something to happen, there's JT that rides to the rescue. That's what I talk about, it being awfully quiet around him. Since then, he had the overtime goal in Florida, and that was terrific. But it's really hard to sort of pinpoint games that he has really put his stamp on over the last couple of weeks. So is he playing through something? It's possible. But, I mean, time heals. The body is a miraculous thing. It does heal with time. And so if he was plagued by something in the preseason, we're now 6 weeks removed there. He hasn't missed a practice. He hasn't missed a game. I suppose he did miss 1 practice after the game in Philadelphia where he didn't take any faceoffs, but he's back taking faceoffs. Faceoffs haven't been an issue for him, but guys, on Saturday, that might have been his poorest showing as a member of the Vancouver Canucks, and there are reasons for it. He had the matchup against Connor McDavid, but you saw the underlying numbers. The shots on goal were 9-1 in favor of the Oilers at even strength with Miller out there. Scoring chances 8-zip, individual Corsi of 15 or 16%. Like, he won those matchups in the playoffs, and that's why you believe that JT Miller, when he's on his game, is able to do that, to take on the matchup against a player like McDavid and thrive and come out on top. Maybe it was an off night for him, like it was for the team. Whatever the case, it just doesn't look, but more so, it doesn't feel like what we think of when JT Miller's at the top of his game. Haven't seen that for a little while now.
You just can't have both of the top centers going at the same time. I think that's the lesson, right? One of them has to be middling a little bit. The good news for the Canucks is that we do see an upswing for Elias Pettersson at the very least.
Yeah, and look, Rick Tocchet talked about pregame why he had sort of abandoned the winning formula that he had used in Los Angeles, and he was trying to create a line that he could trust to match up against McDavid. And in saying that, he said, "Hey, I hope that we can win some of the other matchups elsewhere." And he didn't name names, but I think he was speaking directly to Elias Pettersson, and I would say that Pettersson did that. He crushed it statistically in the game, scores a goal. Nice effort on the goal to sort of force the turnover to begin with, and then gets to the front of the net. We've seen him standing his ground in front of the net a bunch here recently. He had the big one-timer in the first period that people have all been waiting to see. Now, he whistled it way wide, but baby steps here, I suppose. It's encouraging to see that it's still there, and he got all of it. Like, I think somebody pointed out, by NHL Edge statistics, his hardest shot of the season. So, I thought it was interesting post-game, though, when Taka was asked directly, what did you think of Paterson? And basically was like, yeah, good for him. And then moved on to the next question. So I don't think we're there where the coach is ready to heap a ton of praise on Elias Pettersson. Of course, that came in the aftermath, moments after a dispiriting loss to a divisional rival. So I don't think Taka was looking for silver linings in that moment particularly. But yeah, I mean, again, some signs here. Now it's building on that. He ends up getting an assist on the Pia Suter power play goal in the final minute. So you've heard me talking about the multi-point game that had eluded him all season and through the playoffs. Credit where it's due. He does come out of Saturday night with a couple of points. So is it something to build on? I suppose we'll find out on Tuesday against Calgary.
Do I have this right, Jeff? His first multi-point game in 37?
I think that sounds right, yeah.
Including the postseason last year. You got to go back to March 23rd against the Calgary Flames last year to find his last multi-point game. Let's ask you the Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. Was trading Daniel Sprong and promoting Jonathan Lekkerimäki the right call?
Yeah, it wasn't there for Sprong. And look, I had no issues with them making the signing when they did. It was low risk. There was some upside. It didn't turn out that way. I know he scored the first goal for the Canucks this season on an opening night, but that was his only goal. And as Tocchet said, it didn't seem like it was working in the top six, and he certainly wasn't a fit in the bottom six. And they had some young players that they felt had passed Sprong by, so they wanted to do right by him. Didn't put him on waivers, basically gave him away to the Seattle Kraken, a soft landing spot, a familiar place for Sprong where he's had some success. So we'll see if it works out for him there. But with Brock Besser out of the lineup, I know a lot of people were saying, right-handed goal scorer, he's right there in-house. Why wouldn't you do that? Well, I go back to the fact that Tocchet was trying to put a matchup line together against Connor McDavid. There's no world in which Daniel Sprong was going to play part of a matchup against the best player in the National Hockey League. So preemptively, they moved off of Sprong on Friday. They bring in Lekkerimaki. And I think this works well for Lekkerimaki. Like, as much as people were hungry to see him, do you plug him right in against a team like the Oilers? How much would he have played in that game? Where would he have played? Would they have trusted him in a top six role with the weapons that the Oilers have? I think this works out so much better that he gets 2 full practice days with the big league team, and you get a lesser opponent, and full respect to the Calgary Flames, but the Canucks getting a break here, that the Flames at home to Los Angeles tonight. So it's back-to-back for Calgary and for Lekkerimaki. A couple of days just to work off whatever butterflies he has played well down in Abbotsford. It kind of felt like this was going to happen sooner rather than later. But I like the way it's unfolding for him. So, I don't think Lekkerimäki's up for good. I think that we're seeing the Canucks effectively use their farm system now that they've got prospects in the pipeline and they've got control of the cap. They're able to do these shuttles like they did on Sunday. That was a lot of moving parts, but they can do it when both the Canucks and Abbotsford are at home. And so I think you give Lekkerimaki an opportunity here. You hope it works out well. I hope he forces them to keep him at the NHL level because he brings that scoring touch. But if he doesn't, you send him back to Abbotsford, apply the things that he learned in the time that he's up. But Brock Besser will return at some point, and they'll plug Besser right back into his spot. But I like the fact, as they did in preseason and training camp, where they're putting Lekkerimaki in a position to succeed. I mean, they're putting him in Besser's spot with Miller and Pia Suter. They're not asking him to start on a fourth line and work his way up. This is a prize prospect. This is a guy that has some pedigree, and he can score. He scored at every level he's played at. Let's see if he can do it in the National Hockey League as well.
And when Besser comes back and then Joshua's back as well, they're actually busier on the wing now than they were previously.
Yeah, and options are a good thing to have. I know everybody's sort of going through their own personal depth charts and white boards on the wall. Where does Dakota Joshua slot in? I think they start him slowly, ramp him up so that he can regain penalty-killing duties as well. But I don't think you plug him in a top six role. Look, this isn't a guy that's really ever been in the top six role in the National Hockey League. I think you start him on the bottom floor and work his way up there, and then you've got options. But right now, that third line kind of feels untouchable. So does Joshua start on a fourth line and then make a jump higher at some point? Do you see him and Garland reunited with Elias Pettersson in the middle. I think that's an option for Rick Tocchet, but I'd also like to see Dakota Joshua on one side, Kiefer Sherwood on the other, with Teddy Bluger in the middle. I think that could be a lot of fun for a legitimate and a pretty strong third line for the Vancouver Canucks. So moving parts, we'll have to make sure that everybody's healthy as we kind of go through these scenarios, because as one guy comes out of the lineup, another one gets back. That's just life in pro sports. So let's take stock of where they are and all the healthy bodies they've got. But Joshua's getting closer. I do think that, I don't know if we see him Tuesday, but I do think we see him on this homestand now.
I know they're calling it upper body injury. Do we suspect concussion with Besser?
Yeah, but nobody's used that word. Nobody's mentioned whether he's in protocol. And Rick Tocchet is a guy that has not been afraid to go down that road in the past, but said no update after practice on Sunday. But yes, I mean, just based on the contact, whether it's the brain, whether it's whiplash, who knows? But yes, I think that we're all talking the same language here on the injury.
What do they do with goaltending now, Jeff? Shelovs is back up. Ty Young dispatched. You explained that. We explained in the first segment, why it was Ty Young. Where do you see them going with goaltending this week, Jeff?
Well, I like the idea of getting Shelovs, first of all, into the game on Saturday to knock a little bit of rust off in garbage time, and then all part of the plan. I think they had to know that he was going to get sent down to play in Abbotsford and gets a victory down there, so good for his confidence. Remember, it was Shelovs that got absolutely torched by the Calgary Flames on opening night, so I don't think that makes much sense to throw him back in there against the Flames here. I think you give Lankinen an opportunity to bounce back. I have to think that the team will be snapped to attention by the way things got away from them on Saturday, so I would expect a stouter defensive effort in front of Lankinen. But I think you come back to Kevin Lankinen against the Flames, and then you got the back-to-backs here on the weekend. I think it was important to get Silovs some game action at some level, because I think he'll get one of those two games. But, I mean, look, as I said right at the top, I didn't love all the goals. The Kulak goal that got right through Lankinen, that never looks good on a goaltender. But otherwise, a lot of shoddy defensive coverage, a lot of guys lying, allowed to stand the ground, loose pucks to bang in. So guys in front of the goaltending, whether it's Silovs, whether it's Lankinen, again, we've seen this, the New Jersey game, now this one against Edmonton. There have been too many defensive breakdowns and coverage issues. They've just got to get better. But look, he wasn't going to go with that bagel in the regulation loss column all season long. It was going to happen sooner rather than later. Turns out that it was later until his 10th start for the Vancouver Canucks. So I think you got to give Lankinen every opportunity to bounce back here on Tuesday night.
Great stuff. Jeff, thank you for this. We'll be watching and taking in rink-wide throughout the week, and we'll catch up with you on Friday.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you then.
Sekeres and Price from the Historic Wall Center. You can text us 778-402-9680. Email live at sekeresandprice.com. It all goes to the Great Clips inbox. Great Clips.
It's going to be great.
So, Whitecaps were game but fell short.
Yeah.
They lose to LAFC Friday 1-0. They lose the series 2-1. Would have been a second all-time appearance in the MLS West semis after 2017 in Seattle. They won a couple of playoff games. They scored a whack of goals and lost to a team that may well be the best team in the league. Certainly finished first in the West. What's your take?
It's just unfortunate that it all played out the way that it did, because losing to this team is not the end of the world to this team. It's just where you lose to this team. Like, if they had lost to this team in the next round, I think people dust their hands off and say, oh, progress, no problem. It's a great team, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that they fell so much late in the regular season put them on the collision path early with LAFC. And now, the pessimists can easily say, well, you're no further than you have ever been before anyway, even though they did win a round officially with the wildcard play-in. So, I feel bad for them in that regard, because I really do think if this team gets assembled, and Armstrong is fit, White's back from his concussion, and they're assembled, 10 days earlier than they ultimately were, which was, remember, they weren't fully assembled until the wild card game. But if they're assembled, for their penultimate game of the season, I think they win the requisite amount of games to at least get to the 7th seed and maybe postpone facing them at that point. And
Well,
they
I
are
think-
their dragon. I mean, I honestly think the Whitecaps would have done better against Galaxy than they did against
Well, I was just going to say, and Vanny said in the postgame that he regrets the last 2 games of the regular season because that's where they fell to 8th, and they could have avoided LAFC. You needed to finish 6th or better to avoid the LA teams. I mean, the LA teams were the 2 best teams in the West this year. And, if you avoid them, maybe get some help, or as you say, you meet them further down the path when I think you can feel better about the exit. So, yes, we sit here and continue to await our first real run in the Major League Soccer playoffs. Now, let me take you through the players they have options on, Blake, or are free agents, and you let me know what you think. Ryan Raposo is a pure free agent. Not a starter for this team, at least not often, but has been a useful utility club.
Yeah.
You bringing him back? You giving him a raise? Made $155,000 this year.
I certainly don't want to give much of a raise there. You have to see what other utility clubs are out there. He's a useful one. I'm not
He's a
done with
Canadian
him.
too, and
Yeah.
he's a homegrown, an MLS super draft pick.
And for Canadian championship games, you need Canadians, and you want to develop Canadians. So, yeah, I'm not against him coming back for sure.
Diber, these are all option now, guys. Diber Caicedo played on 381 this year. What do you think?
Thank you for your service, Tabor.
Okay. Fafa Pico played on 670. We had heard earlier in the season that he wanted out. He wanted to trade, wasn't getting enough playing time. Any chance Pico is back?
I think there is a chance. Yeah. I still don't think he was wild about his usage from Vanni Sartini.
Yeah.
But he had a renaissance year, so you got to be careful walking away from that.
And he was nifty late there, helped them out. Alexander Schaff was played at nearly $1 million this year, club option.
I think you might be able to do better than Alessandro Schaff, and I don't, I don't mind he's a good possession hold up play, but that's you think you could pay a lot less for that kind of a play, so I'll say no.
Mm-hmm. And then Yohei Takaoka, the keeper, and this may be the biggest one, the biggest decision here. He played at $789 this year. They got a club option on him. What says you?
So he's not expensive on the grand scheme of things, but I think you can do better. I really do. I think Isaac Bomer can take on some of the load, or you go out and get a brand name keeper. But I am ready to move on from the Yohei Takaoka era. So
really, of these 5 guys, there's not any of them that you're really itching to bring back.
No, I mean, Fafa's getting older. That's my only. If Fafa was 30, I would be more inclined to say, yeah, bring back Fafa Pico. He's getting on, so I'd be a little bit.
And the good news is everyone we've talked about, with the exception of the keeper, isn't really a key piece here, right?
No.
Like, you have most of your best players and the guys you absolutely want returning under contract for next year. So, I'm with you. I would like to see what the team looks like with a full season and full fitness from Stuart Armstrong. And I have more confidence in the Axel Schuster regime than I've had in previous regimes in terms of player procurement. So we'll see how they do there.
I mean, I also want to get to people are wondering, how do you get better? I mean, you can luck out on an international player that adds it. The other thing is, their DPs are not super high paid DPs. I wonder what their TAM is like, that they could TAM down a player and then open up another designated player spot. So that's another option.
Winnipeg and Toronto will play in the 111th Grey Cup game here Sunday at BC Place. It's Grey Cup week, and the Bombers have been to 5 straight of these after dispatching the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the West final. We talked about it Friday. This is the first time a team's gone to 5 straight Grey Cups since you got to go back to the late 70s, early 80s. Edmonton, then Eskimos, their dynasty, 5 Grey Cup wins in a row. They met 2 years ago. Toronto pulled the upset in a heck of a game, 24-23. Certainly hoping for that on Sunday because, well, let's face it. And I mean, Winnipeg showed out at Princess Auto Stadium. They sold it out on Sunday. Hope for a good Bombers contingent here during the week because, let's face it, the Argos don't travel many fans. And, you would have had the invasion of the Flatlanders. The Greens would have been here had Saskatchewan.
That's a big swing.
Yeah, it is a big swing. And honestly, Corey Mesa, British Columbia, he had a terrific football career as a player. I think he's an exceptional young coach. And I think he made a ridiculously bad decision in going for it when he went for it. Down 2 touchdowns, but with 13 minutes left to play, Corey. It was 3rd and 3 from your own 25. I mean, if you miss that, it's instantly a third score game. I thought he should have punted, played the longer game, see if Winnipeg would have made a mistake. Maybe you get a stop, you get the ball right back. But as soon as he did that with 13 minutes left on the clock, that was that. Winnipeg wins the game. The East Final was tremendous. I mean, tons of turnovers, but what a fun game. And Montreal falls just short of repeating and coming back to the Grey Cup.
The only thing with coming out of that, of course, is with the Chad Kelly injury, you're not even getting the best Argos. So,
well, that's the other problem here is I'm not sure this Grey Cup needed the Nick Arbuckle story, but here we go. Kelly carted off.
And he also is a villain, right? So, like fans there'd be drama, there'd be emotion. No one has a thought on Nick Arbuckle.
I was going to say, like, if you can stomach rooting for O'Shea in Winnipeg, you could have against Kelly, the villain in the Argonauts. But Rod Smith was all over it on the broadcast on Saturday. Ryan Didwitty, the Argos head coach, was thrown into this spot in the 2007 Grey Cup when Kevin Glenn got hurt in the West Final for the Bombers, and he had to take over, I guess the East Final, for the Bombers back then, and he had to take over. It was his first CFL start, that Grey Cup game. It was a really ugly Grey Cup game. Arbuckle at least has the experience and actually looked pretty good in what he had to do on Saturday to secure that win for Toronto. These teams have met 8 times before in the Grey Cup, and Winnipeg has never won, albeit 7 of those meetings. 7 of those meetings came between 1937 and 1950. We are talking about a Winnipeg.
One in the modern era?
One in the modern era. There's some Winnipeg RAF teams back in there, Blake. That's how far long ago it was. And wanted to get to this from Farhan. So the Lions granted permission to the Elks to speak to Ryan Rigmaiden, their director of U.S. Scouting, about the GM position. Farhan says Rigmaiden has declined the opportunity and is going to remain with the Lions. He says the Lions made retaining Rigmaiden a priority. Sounds like they might have redone the contract, given him a raise there. So that part of the Lions operation is settled.
To me, it sounds like there's a title reworking happening in the not too distant
future. May well be.
Alas,
Farhan thought we would hear something from the Lions with regards to the future of the coaching staff and all of that late last week. Mm-hmm. We didn't. We'll see if Amar Doman wants to act here early in Grey Cup week. I can't imagine he's going to say anything late in Grey Cup week because they sort of want the focus to be on the game. Anyways, looking forward to the festival. It is always a good time. One of Canada's great parties, annual parties. Encourage you to go on out and experience it. Congrats to UBC soccer. The men's and the ladies programs both won national championships on the weekend. The women went 19-0 this year. They beat Laval 1-0 in Halifax for their record 9th title all time. The men with a dramatic victory. Surrey's Jovan Mann scores 2 minutes into stoppage time. They beat Montreal 1-0 in Oshawa. It's the 14th title in program history. Blake, I know you spent some time at UBC. I spent some time at UBC. The facilities there are outstanding, particularly on the soccer side. Of course, the Whitecaps are there, and it's paying big dividends. Both of them national champions over the course of the weekend. Congrats to all the coaches and players.
It's great. And keep in mind that there are players on the Canadian men's national team right now that jumped out of U Sports. You never know. It's a good program. Yeah.
Poll question results from Friday. Are the Oilers overrated? Yes or no? What did the people say?
People said yes.
Indeed. Percentage?
78.
75. Pretty good, Blake. Most of those votes came in prior to Saturday's game. Maine says absolutely. They got significantly worse last year compared to last season. Lost all their youth and speed. Hilariously never addressed their goaltending too. Toro says, if you said as much at the start of the season, a lot of wise guys would talk down to you about how you're wrong. And James says, no, they're clearly a better playoff team until Vancouver eliminates Edmonton or makes it past round 2. The Canucks can't say much about them. And can't say much after Saturday either. I don't have any errors and omissions noted from Friday's program. Anything to self-report, Blake?
I don't see anything on my list either. No, I think it's
All right.
clean slate. Yeah.
Clean slate. Well, I'm sure we'll make some this week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with us. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels at YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time, weekdays. And please do support the community sponsors we keep telling you about and keep it low.